Hello, you're watching the Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm Janusz Rewiński. At least 6 civilians, including children, were killed and 21 more were wounded in Russian strikes across Ukraine in the past 24 hours, according to the regional authorities of Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force said Russian troops launched 142 Shahed-type attack and decoy drones overnight. Air defense shot down 112 UAVs, but 26 reached their targets in 7 different locations. In the Donetsk region, 4 people were killed in Novodonetsk, Sloviansk and Toretsk, with 10 more wounded. In the Kharkiv region, 2 people, including a 6-year-old child, suffered injuries. The Dnipropetrovsk governor reported a woman wounded after 3 drones were intercepted over the region. Russian attacks in the Kherson region wounded 2 people and damaged homes and an apartment building. In the Sumy region, 5 people, including 2 children, were wounded in 135 Russian attacks across 51 settlements. Meanwhile, in the Zaporizhia region, 2 people were killed and 1 wounded in 449 Russian strikes across 17 communities. Russia also targeted a thermal power facility near Kyiv, though no casualties were reported. The escalation comes as Moscow continues to reject Kyiv's calls for an unconditional ceasefire. According to the President of the European Council, António Costa, the future package of sanctions against Russia is being closely coordinated with the United States, while confirming that the US is engaged in the process of drawing up further sanctions against the Kremlin. Costa added that Washington is also fully committed to supporting future security guarantees to ensure peace in Ukraine.
The United States remain engaged, supporting Ukraine, and is committed to support future security guarantees to ensure a lasting peace in Ukraine. What we are doing now with the United States is coordinating our efforts to align our sanctions to be more effective and to put more pressure on Russia and President Putin to finally accept to come to peace negotiation talks with President Zelensky.
EU sanctions envoy David O'Sullivan will hold meetings in Washington on Monday to discuss further measures against Russia, the European Commission spokesman has said. He also added that Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is expected to announce new sanctions in her State of the Union address on Wednesday. US President Donald Trump said on Sunday that certain European leaders will visit Washington on Monday and Tuesday to discuss how to bring Russia's war in Ukraine to an end. The president also said that he is considering economic pressure on Russia and that Europe needs to do the same. Earlier on, Trump also stated that he expects to talk to Vladimir Putin later during the week.
Well, we're going to see. I mean, we have some very interesting discussions. You know, certain European leaders are coming over to our country on Monday or Tuesday, and individually. And I think we're going to get that settled. I think we're going to get it settled.
When do you plan to speak to President Putin next? And what
Very soon. Over the next couple of days. Look, we're going to get it done. The Russia-Ukraine situation, we're going to get it done. I have confidence we're going to get it done.
Poland and Lithuania are responding to threats posed by Russia at their borders, said President Karol Nawrocki at a joint press conference with his Lithuanian counterpart Gitanas Nausėda in Vilnius on Monday. The 2 leaders held bilateral talks as part of Nawrocki's official visit to Lithuania, his 2nd trip abroad as Polish president.
We are experiencing Russian threats at our borders and in the Baltic Sea region. This was the subject of our conversation with the Lithuanian president. We are concerned about these threats because we're familiar with the spirit of the Russian Federation, but we are also able to respond to them together. Our meeting focused on the joint responses of our countries in the face of the hybrid war taking place on our borders. We agreed that we will continue military cooperation both bilaterally and within NATO and the European Union. We devoted much attention to security, which remains the most important issue in our region. We are the guardians of NATO's and the EU's eastern border. We discussed how to strengthen NATO's eastern flank, including air defense capabilities and a joint response to threats posed by drones. Both our countries are committed to allocating at least 5% of GDP to defense.
Shortly before 10 p.m. on Sunday, police in the eastern Polish town of Terespol were alerted to the discovery of an unidentified flying object near the Polish-Belarusian border. The site is now secured, with prosecutors and emergency services notified. Another reminder that unidentified intrusions into Polish airspace, often of Russian origin, remain a recurring concern. Every object that enters Polish airspace is monitored. Will such situations happen in a frontline country? Of course, because several thousand drones are shot down in Ukraine every day. Does this mean we're safe? Yes, and our security services are already investigating the incident. We know more and more, and while many of the findings are classified and can't be shared publicly, I can say that we have raised alert levels for matters concerning Polish airspace security. France's budgetary affairs are on Europe's lips once again, with the government of François Bayrou expected to lose a vote of confidence on Monday evening on the back of a €44 billion plan to cut expenses in the next year's budget. The fall of the government will spell trouble for the EU's second biggest economy and the European Union as a whole.
This is French Prime Minister François Bayrou. His government is very close to collapsing, all because he wanted France to spend less.
As we have been saying since this government took office, we now have the duty to assume our responsibility. I think this is the last stop before we tumble down a cliff because of debt. We should call it by its name. It's a mortal danger to our country.
France is going to spend €67 billion just on debt interest. That's the second largest item in the budget, well before education or defense. The country has been running high deficits since the pandemic and is now the third most indebted member state in the EU. It now borrows at a higher rate than Greece and close to that of Italy, the proverbial sick man of Europe. A sign of sinking investor confidence in the country.
If in the coming months and year we are not able to make reforms and to reduce the deficit, then the rates will continue to rise, and this will be a real problem, because when interest rates are rising, then you need to pay more to investors. So reducing the public deficit becomes even more and more difficult.
To France's credit, it's not the only developed country struggling with debt problems, and it's still borrowing at pretty good rates. However, with no end in sight for political turmoil in Paris, credit agencies are watching, and many may downgrade France very soon, depending on the outcomes of Monday evening's confidence vote.
Norwegians have taken to the polls on Sunday and Monday to vote in two-day parliamentary elections dominated by concerns over rising costs of living and Donald Trump's trade policies. The results of these elections could have an impact on the oil and gas industries and power supply to Europe, as well as the management of Norway's $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund. At the start of the year, the Labour Party was lagging in the polls, but received a major boost in February when former NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg returned to politics, a move that the Norwegian press dubbed the Stoltenbach. According to the most recent opinion polls, the left-wing coalition, including the ruling Labour Party, is expected to win 88 seats in the parliament, or 3 more than required to secure a majority. On the right, the Progress Party, the Conservatives and 2 smaller parties look set to sweep the remaining 81 seats. Among the key issues of the campaign were inflation, taxes and quality of public services, as well as the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, as well as Donald Trump's foreign and trade policies. Voting in the two-day election concludes at 9 p.m. local time on Monday, with early results expected early Tuesday morning. Two police officers have been killed in an armed attack on a police station in Izmir, Turkey's third largest city. According to the Turkish security services, a 16-year-old attacker opened fire on the police station. The perpetrator has been detained. Izmir has been hit by militant attacks in the past, with security forces and government institutions often among the targets. One of such incidents was a car bombing outside a courthouse back in 2017, which killed 2 people. In Jerusalem, 6 people were killed in a shooting incident. The perpetrators have been killed, according to Israeli police. It remains unclear who is behind the shooting or what was the motive. The police described the assailants as terrorists, but refused to provide any more details. Apart from the 6 people who lost their lives, 15 others were injured, some with serious gunshot wounds. Rescue teams rushed to the scene immediately after the incident found victims lying on the road and sidewalk near the bus stop, some of them unconscious. The staff of the London Metro began a week of rolling strikes late Sunday evening over pay and work conditions. The action is expected to bring the underground network to a standstill and cause major disruptions for travellers in the British capital.
Between Monday and Thursday, there will be little to no service on all metro lines, as different parts of the trade union walk out on different days. On Sunday, Transport for London, which operates the British capital's public transport system, reported that the Bakerloo and Circle lines were completely suspended, while the Central, Metropolitan and Piccadilly lines were partly suspended. According to the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union, the dispute centers around pay, fatigue management, shift patterns, and a reduction in the working week. Transport for London said it had made an offer to increase staff pay by 3.4%. At the same time, representatives of TfL said that a reduction in the contractual 35-hour week is, quote, neither practical nor affordable.
Aaron Patterson, who killed 3 people with toxic mushrooms in Australia, has been sentenced to life in prison with possibility of parole after 33 years. The 50-year-old was convicted in July of triple murder for serving a poisonous meal to her husband's parents, as well as his aunt and uncle, during a lunch at her home in 2023.
At the time of the murders, Patterson was fighting her husband over child support contributions. Throughout the trial, the defendant maintained the beef Wellington was accidentally poisoned with death cap mushrooms, the world's most lethal fungi. While they can be easily mistaken for other edible varieties, the jury did not believe Patterson and found her guilty. Reading out the sentence, Supreme Court Justice said that the woman had inflicted trauma on her victims and families, and her failure to exhibit any remorse only aggravates the victims' wounds. Erin Patterson's legal team now has 28 days to appeal both her convictions and her sentence. They argued she should be given a chance to release after 30 years, because the notoriety of her case would mean spending most of her prison sentence in isolation.
Poland said goodbye to Stanisław Sojka, towering figure in the country's music scene, on Monday. The funeral of the jazz vocalist and pop singer was held in Warsaw. Stanisław Sojka died on the 21st of August at the age of 66. He made his debut at 23 with an appearance at the Jazz Jamboree in Warsaw, which led to collaborations with jazz stars such as Michał Urbaniak and Tomasz Stańko. On the day he died, he was scheduled to perform at the closing concert of the Top festival in the Baltic resort city of Sopot. Known for his versatility, Stanisław Sojka was also a violinist, a pianist, guitarist, composer, arranger and a poet. He was also the one who performed the Polish version of the song You've Got a Friend in Me for the Polish dub of the first Toy Story movie. According to the Polish Ministry of Culture, his death is, and I quote, a profound loss for Polish musical culture. And that's all for now here on Midday Report. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news, updates and commentary.